Hello, be sure to get through the story to the end and in the comments write your opinion, and subscribe to the channel, put a like. Was supposed to be an ordinary evening, one of those routine nights when life felt predictable, even comfortable. Emily and I had just finished dinner, and we were doing what we always did after. Cleaning up, chatting about the small stuff. The humdrum of daily life. The kind of night that should have felt familiar, like slipping into an old sweater you've worn 100 times. One that still holds the warmth of past evenings spent with someone you thought you knew. But tonight was different. The air in the room had shifted in a way I couldn't put my finger on. I didn't even realize it at first, not until I brought up the unpaid bill. Emily, did you get the electric bill? I asked, wiping down the counter. My voice was casual, but there was an underlying tension in my tone. I knew we'd been running tight on money lately, and a part of me had been silently counting the days until the next paycheck would come in. There was no room for mistakes, no room for slipping through the cracks. She didn't look up from the sink where she was washing the dishes, her back still turned to me. There was something about her posture that felt stiff, like she was holding herself in place. Her shoulders were tense, and the faucet's steady stream of water couldn't drown out the way my heart started to race. "I'm not your property," she said suddenly, her voice sharp as a knife. I froze. The words hung in the air between us, hanging heavy, a thunderclap in the middle of a quiet room. I blinked, processing her words. I wasn't sure if I had heard her correctly, so I repeated the question, though this time it felt forced, like I was talking through a thick fog. "What? I'm not your property," she snapped again, this time spinning around to face me. Her eyes were fierce, intense, in a way I hadn't seen in years. Her brow was furrowed, lips pressed tight together in a line of irritation. I couldn't understand where this was coming from. This wasn't like her. I had always known Emily to be patient, to choose her words carefully. But there was no misinterpreting her tone now. This wasn't just about the bill. I wasn't just being a nagging husband, wasn't just questioning something trivial like forgotten tasks or unpaid bills. No, this felt like a declaration, something larger that had been simmering beneath the surface for a while, waiting to erupt. Her words were an unexpected blow, the kind that catches you completely off guard, leaving you reeling. I stared at her for a second, unsure what to say, unsure if I even had the right to respond. What was I supposed to say to that? Was this a fight I didn't see coming? I swallowed hard and cleared the table, the motion feeling automatic, like I was going through the motions of something I'd done 100 times before. But as I stacked the plates, my mind began racing, analyzing every little thing in our life together. I'd always been the one to take charge in our relationship, managing the bills, overseeing the mundane details of our life. Yet never once had I felt unappreciated for it. Or so I thought. All these years I had made sacrifices, worked long hours, picked up the pieces when things weren't going well. Was it all just a performance? Did she see me as nothing more than a provider? Was I simply the man who was responsible for her comfort, her stability, her security? A cold sense of resolve settled over me. It wasn't anger. It wasn't even confusion. It was something deeper, something final. I'd always believed believed in the life we built. We were partners, right? Or at least I thought we were. It had never crossed my mind that she could feel the way she did. To her, I wasn't a partner, I wasn't a team player. I was someone who was controlling her, trapping her in a life that she hadn't asked for. Was that really what she thought of me? I could feel my chest tightening as I wiped the counter with mechanical movements. The familiar kitchen, the place where we had spent countless nights together, had suddenly become a place that felt foreign, as if the walls were closing in around me. I had always prided myself on providing for her, and for a long time I thought she appreciated it. I worked long hours to ensure she had everything she needed, whether it was the latest tech gadget she wanted or making sure our savings account had enough to cover an unexpected expense. We had everything, didn't we? Or so I thought. I hadn't noticed the shift in her, hadn't noticed the way she'd been changing over the past few months. It wasn't just about the bills. It wasn't just about the small arguments that had **n to crop up, the ones that seemed insignificant at the time, but added up over time. She had been slipping away, and I hadn't seen it. How had I missed it? For the first time, I questioned everything we had built. The sacrifices I had made, the long nights spent working while she was asleep, the weekends where I couldn't join her on trips because I had to work late or catch up on things around the house. Was all of it too much? Was she resenting me for the life I had created for us? I had always thought of our relationship as a partnership, but now I was wondering if she had seen it as a prison. Had I been suffocating her? Had I tried too hard to hold on to something that was slipping away? The thought hit me harder than I wanted to admit. I couldn't talk about this yet. Not with her. Not with the way she was standing there, still looking at me with that unreadable expression on her face. What did I even say to that? How did I explain what had just happened? Did I even want to explain it? The room was silent. The clinking of plates and silverware as I finished cleaning felt deafening. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. As I lay in bed that night, the silence stretched between us like a heavy blanket. Couldn't sleep. I couldn't shake the weight of her words. Couldn't shake the cold sense of resolve that had settled in me like a stone. Was she right? Had I been too controlling? Had I reduced everything we had to a series of tasks and responsibilities instead of two people working together, side by side? Her voice echoed in my head, and I couldn't stop replaying it. I'm not your property. It wasn't just a statement, it was a judgment. And it wasn't just about the bill. It was everything that had led up to that moment. Everything I had missed. Everything I hadn't seen. If she wanted independence, then I would give it to her. Completely. But with that, she would have to carry the weight of everything herself. The next morning, everything seemed normal, too normal. Emily had already left for work by the time I woke up. The house felt quieter than usual, and I couldn't shake the lingering tension from the night before. It was as if a door had been opened between us, and I had no idea what lay on the other side. Her absence felt heavy, more so than usual. The house was empty, but my thoughts were loud. I hadn't made a decision on how to address what had happened. I didn't want to confront her too soon, not while the sting of her words was still so raw, not when everything inside me was still unsettled. But I couldn't pretend like nothing had happened. Something had shifted. She had made her choice, and I was about to make mine. The whole day passed in a blur. I went through the motions, working, eating, trying to focus, but my mind kept drifting back to that moment. The way she looked at me when she said those words. The finality in her tone. She hadn't just accused me of being controlling. She had said that I didn't see her anymore. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that she might be right. I had been so focused on holding everything together, on making sure we had what we needed, that I hadn't truly seen her. When Emily came home that night, she was acting like everything was fine. She didn't mention the conversation, didn't bring up the tension that had been hanging between us. It was like nothing had happened at all. She made dinner as if it were just any other night. And for a moment, I almost fooled myself into thinking things could go back to normal. But they couldn't. I wasn't going to be the one to address it. I had decided that much. I wasn't going to be the one to bring up the cracks in our marriage. She had to see them first. She had to feel the weight of her words and realize what she had started. It wasn't about punishing her. It wasn't about getting revenge. It was about giving her a taste of what she had been demanding. Independence. The next morning, I woke up early. I didn't make coffee, didn't prepare anything for her. I just went about my day silently, deliberately. When she came into the kitchen, I could tell she was expecting things to be normal again. But I wasn't going to pretend. I wasn't going to be the caretaker anymore. Not today. Do you need me to pay that bill? She asked, glancing at the pile of paperwork on the counter. Her voice was casual, but I could hear the uncertainty in it. She was trying to reestablish some kind of normalcy, as if the last 24 hours hadn't happened. No, I said, looking up from the kitchen counter. You can handle it. Her eyes narrowed, a flash of confusion crossing her face. What do you mean? You always take care of that stuff. Yeah, well, you wanted independence, I replied. My voice was calm, almost too calm. But inside, I felt something shifting, like a stone falling to the bottom of my stomach. You can handle it now. I could see the gears turning in her head. She wasn't angry, not yet, but the irritation was there, just beneath the surface. She didn't challenge me, though. Not yet. Instead, she just nodded and walked out of the room, the sound of her footsteps heavy as they echoed in the hall. I didn't care that it seemed small. These little moments were significant to me. I had always been the one to pick up the slack. I had always been the one to fix things, to manage everything. But no more. Not today. Throughout the rest of the day, I kept to myself. Every time Emily asked for help with something, a quick errand, fixing something around the house, making a call, my response was always the same: you can handle it. It wasn't about being spiteful. It wasn't about wanting her to suffer. It was about her facing the reality of the independence she had claimed. I had taken on the role of caretaker for so long that it was second nature to me. But now I was stepping back. If she truly didn't want to be my responsibility, then she would have to take on all the weight of everything herself. Her confusion was palpable. I could see the frustration building in her eyes. But she didn't push me. Not yet. Instead, she just got quiet, retreating into herself. And that, more than anything, told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't ready to face it. She didn't understand the weight of what she had said the night before. By the time evening came, the tension between us was thick. It wasn't the kind of tension that you could ignore or brush aside. It was the kind of tension that made it impossible to pretend things were normal. It felt like a wall had been built between us, and I wasn't sure if it could ever come down. When she asked if I wanted to watch TV or eat something, I simply shrugged. "I'm fine." She glanced at me, hesitating. "You sure? You don't seem like yourself today." "I'm just tired," I replied, my tone flat. I wasn't going to give her anything more. Not yet. She didn't push. She just nodded and went back to whatever it was she was doing. But I could feel the shift in the air. She didn't know how to handle it, didn't know what to do with the quiet space between us. And I wasn't going to fill it. Not this time. That night, as I lay in bed, the silence stretched out like an ocean. I didn't know where this would go. I didn't know if she would come around, if she would understand what was happening. But what I did know was that I was no longer going to be the one to carry this weight alone. She had made her choice, and now it was time for her to bear the consequences of that choice. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even upset. I was just detached. It was as though I had stepped outside of myself, watching this unfold from a distance, as if I were witnessing someone else's story. And maybe that was the hardest part, the realization that I didn't know who we were anymore. That the person I had once known, the woman I had been with for so long, was becoming a stranger to me. But I would give her the independence she had so strongly claimed. And when she did, I would be here, waiting, ready to watch her carry everything she had asked for. Everything she had once relied on me to carry. And when she did, when she realized just how much weight she would have to bear on her own, I would let her. Completely. The next few days passed in a strange, muted silence between Emily and me. It wasn't the kind of silence that comes with comfort, the kind that lets you breathe easily in each other's presence. No, this silence was thick, suffocating, filled with things unsaid and tensions unaddressed. I kept my distance deliberately. Each time Emily tried to start a conversation, I gave short, curt answers, not engaging beyond what was necessary. She didn't push me, though. I think part of her was still waiting for things to go back to normal, but I wasn't about to pretend like nothing had happened. I noticed her confusion growing. Little things, small, almost insignificant things, began to slip. She'd leave a pile of dirty laundry in the hallway without asking me to take it to the laundry room. Or she'd forget to call the plumber about the leaky faucet that had been on our to-do list for months. Normally, she'd ask me for help or take care of it herself. But now, it seemed like she was silently waiting for me to step in. And each time, I let the silence stretch between us, like a rope pulling tighter with every passing hour. One evening, she came home after a long day of work, her face pale and drawn, her eyes red-rimmed. She'd been unusually quiet during dinner, and I could tell something was weighing on her. I didn't ask about it. Instead, I just ate my food in silence, pushing the conversation back where it belonged. Nowhere. Afterward, she sat on the couch and picked up her phone, scrolling through something, though I couldn't tell what. Her hands were trembling slightly, a subtle movement, but it was there. I wondered if she was thinking about the night she had so boldly declared her independence. Was she regretting it? Or was she still stuck in some kind of mental loop, trying to convince herself that she had been right? It was almost like watching someone teeter on the edge of a cliff, waiting for them to make the first move, waiting for them to jump. She tried once, about an hour later. The words were almost unrecognizable when they left her lips, a mix of frustration and confusion. "Michael, this isn't how things are supposed to be," she said, her voice quiet, the edge of desperation creeping in. "We're supposed to talk through things. We're supposed to figure this out." I didn't look up from the TV. I knew what she was doing. She wanted me to fill the silence, to offer her the comfort she was used to. But I wasn't going to give it to her. Not this time. "Maybe it's time we figure out what we even means," I said, my tone detached, as if I were talking about something completely unrelated, something trivial. Because right now, I'm not sure what's left to figure out. There was a long pause. I could feel her eyes on me, but I didn't turn to face her. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of seeing me struggle with this. She had made her choice when she told me she was not my property. Now, she had to deal with the consequences of that decision. "You're really doing this, aren't you?" she asked, a little too softly. There was a hurt in her voice now, and I recognized it, even if I didn't want to. "You're really going to just pull away like this? After everything?" I didn't answer, couldn't, because the truth was, I didn't know how to respond. I didn't know if there was a right answer anymore. The woman I had married, who I had once trusted completely, felt like a stranger to me now. She had pulled away from me long before that night, long before she made her declaration of independence. The difference now was that I was finally letting the space between us grow wider. By the time morning rolled around, the weight of the silence in the house felt unbearable. I could feel her presence as I made my coffee, the tension hanging between us like a thick fog. She didn't say anything, didn't try to make small talk. She just got ready for work. The sound of her moving around in the bedroom, the only noise breaking through the stillness. When she left, I didn't say goodbye. I didn't need to. The door closed behind her with a soft click, and I stood there for a moment, letting the emptiness fill the space. Felt so final. The days that followed were a blur. Emily tried to engage with me more, tried to pull me back into some semblance of normalcy, but every attempt was met with a wall of indifference. I wasn't angry at her anymore. I wasn't upset. But I wasn't the man I had been either, the one who would drop everything to fix whatever problem she presented. Now, I was the one watching, detached, waiting for her to realize that the world she had built on her own independence wasn't as easy as she thought. It was almost cruel, how quickly things shifted. The woman who had once relied on me for everything, who had shared her hopes and dreams with me, was now struggling with the very things I had been shouldering for years. And I wasn't going to help her anymore. The following Friday, Emily came home late. She had mentioned that she was staying late at work to finish up a project, but the way she avoided my gaze when she walked through the door told me everything I needed to know. She had been out, and she wasn't being honest with me about it. I didn't ask. I didn't care to know. But when she came into the kitchen to grab a drink, I spoke up without thinking. "Everything okay?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. She froze for a moment, caught off guard by my question. She set her glass down on the counter, but didn't meet my eyes. "Yeah, just a long day." I could see the guilt written all over her. It wasn't just about the bill. It wasn't just about the independence she had claimed. It was about everything that had built up to this point. The lies, the distance between us, the years of small cracks I hadn't noticed until now. I didn't say anything else. There was no need to. She knew. I knew. But instead of confronting her directly, I did what I'd been doing for days. I withdrew. I let the silence grow louder. By the time she turned to leave the room, she was visibly upset. Her voice wavered slightly as she spoke again. "Michael, can you just talk to me? Please." But I couldn't. I couldn't offer her the comfort she was asking for. Not when she had told me she was no longer mine to care for. "Maybe you should talk to someone else," I said, my voice colder than I intended. Someone who can actually help you with that. It wasn't the kind of thing I would normally say, but it felt right. It felt like I was finally drawing a line in the sand, something I hadn't done in so long. And in that moment, I realized that I was no longer waiting for her to fix it. I wasn't waiting for her to come back to me. I was finally letting go. For the first time, the weight of her absence didn't feel like something I had to fill. Felt freeing. The days dragged on like this, quiet, uncomfortable, and full of unspoken things. Emily was trying, I could tell, but the more she tried, the more I distanced myself. It wasn't even about the anger anymore. It was about the realization that something had fundamentally shifted between us. We weren't the same people we had been. We couldn't be. She tried again one morning, after days of this silence, to talk to me. She was standing in the kitchen, her back to me as I poured my coffee. I could feel her presence, though, the way her shoulders were stiff, like she was preparing herself for something. I had become a stranger to her, just as she had become one to me. "You've been different, Michael," she said quietly, her voice hesitant, almost fragile. "I don't know what's going on with you, but this isn't us." I didn't look at her. I didn't even glance up from my coffee. "Maybe this is us now," I said, my voice calm and level, betraying none of the storm brewing beneath the surface. I wasn't trying to be cruel. I was trying to give her exactly what she'd asked for, the space, the independence. And with that, I had to let go, just as she had let go of me. There was a long silence before she spoke again, and I could hear the frustration building in her voice. "No, Michael, this isn't what I wanted. I didn't mean for this to happen. I didn't think it would be like this." I put my coffee down, finally looking up at her, but I didn't move any closer. I was done playing the part of the caretaker, the fixer. She had wanted to handle things on her own, and now I was making sure she did. "Then what did you think it would be like?" I asked, my voice cool. "You said you weren't my property. You wanted your independence. Well, here it is. You're free, and you have to carry everything on your own now, Emily. You can't pick and choose when you want help and when you don't. It doesn't work that way." She seemed to flinch at my words, though she quickly masked it with a defensive shrug, her eyes not meeting mine. "I didn't mean for it to go like this," she repeated. I just wanted us to talk, Michael, to fix things, not to fall apart." I let her words hang in the air for a moment, watching her. She was standing there, looking at the floor, as if the weight of her own actions was finally starting to sink in. I wasn't sure if I felt relief or anger or something else entirely, but I knew one thing for sure. She couldn't undo the damage that had already been done. "Some things can't be fixed, Emily," I said softly, my tone almost sorrowful. "Not after you've crossed the line. Not after you've said what you said. You can't just erase that." The words landed heavily between us, and for a moment, I almost felt the weight of them myself. I had spent so many years giving everything I had to this relationship, and now, standing in the aftermath of it, I felt hollow, empty, like I had been holding my breath for so long and was finally exhaling. But I couldn't let myself go back. I couldn't pretend like nothing had changed. "I've been carrying us for a long time," I continued, my voice steady, though there was a bitter edge to it now. "Maybe that was my mistake. Maybe I shouldn't have taken on so much. But I did. And now, if you want to stand on your own, you have to do it. I'm not your caretaker anymore, Emily. You wanted independence. Now you get to live with it." Her face contorted, torn between frustration and something else. Regret, maybe? But I couldn't be sure. She opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. She was speechless, her words failing her for the first time in a while. Without saying anything else, I turned away, grabbed my jacket, and walked out the door. I needed air. I needed space, and I needed to clear my head. The air outside felt cool against my skin, the weight of the world still pressing on my chest. But it was different now. It wasn't just the burden of our relationship. It was the burden of finally letting go. I didn't know where I was going, just that I couldn't be in that house anymore. I ended up at the local park, walking along the path near the lake. The water was calm, the trees swaying gently in the breeze, but my mind was anything but peaceful. It was still a whirlwind, still spinning with everything I had just said, everything I had done. I kept replaying the conversation over and over in my head, wondering if I had gone too far, if I had crossed a line I shouldn't have. But every time I thought about it, I came to the same conclusion. I had to do this. I had to let her feel the weight of her choices. The park was quiet, and the sun was beginning to set, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. I took a deep breath, letting the cool air fill my lungs. For the first time in days, I felt something close to calm. It wasn't the relief I expected, though. Instead, it was a quiet acceptance, a realization that I had done what I needed to do. But it still didn't feel right. Still didn't feel like closure. By the time I returned home, the house was empty again. Emily wasn't there. The silence was louder than ever, and I found myself standing in the doorway, not sure what to do next. Part of me wanted to reach out, wanted to fix it, but the other part, maybe the stronger part, knew that I couldn't. I couldn't keep pretending that things were fine when they were falling apart at the seams. As I walked further into the house, my eyes caught the photograph on the mantel. The one of us from our wedding day, smiling, carefree, in love. A lifetime ago, it felt like. The realization hit me hard, like a punch to the gut. I wasn't sure who we were anymore. I wasn't sure if we could ever be who we were before. I sat down on the couch, the space between us feeling more like an ocean than just a few feet. And for the first time in a long time, I realized that this silence, this distance, was where we were. It wasn't something I had chosen, but it was something I had to accept. I didn't know how long it would take for Emily to truly understand the gravity of what she had said, of what she had asked for. But I knew one thing. I wasn't going to be the one to fix it. Not anymore. And as the night stretched on, I finally let myself breathe. The weight of the past was still there, but it was lighter. I wasn't carrying it alone anymore. She had wanted her independence. Now she had it, and I had mine. The days that followed were quieter than I could have anticipated. Emily came and went, but there was always a cold distance between us. She no longer tried to engage in the small talk we once shared, nor did she attempt to fix what was broken. It seemed like we were both waiting for something. A moment, an apology, some kind of breakthrough, but neither of us knew what that would look like. I couldn't bring myself to make the first move, and neither could she. It felt like we were both living in parallel lives within the same house, existing side by side but not really existing together. She spent more time at work, or at least she said she did. I couldn't bring myself to check. I had already given her the freedom she so desperately wanted. I didn't want to invade her space any more than I had already done by pulling away. For the first time, I had to admit that I wasn't the person she needed me to be anymore. And that realization hit me harder than anything. It wasn't about the mistakes we had made in our relationship. It was about how far apart we had drifted, how much we had both changed. The person I was, the person I thought I could always be for her, no longer fit into the life she was trying to build. The version of her I loved had changed too, and no amount of clinging to the past could fix that. I kept going through the motions. Work was a distraction. At least I could focus on something that didn't require me to question everything I thought I knew. But when I came home, it was always the same. Silence. The faint sounds of the TV in the background, her moving around in the kitchen or her office, her footsteps echoing down the hall. It was the kind of silence that felt suffocating. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, I walked into the living room, and there she was, sitting on the couch as if she had been waiting for me. I had to admit, a part of me had been waiting for her too. The weight of everything between us was too much to ignore, and I was curious if she had finally decided to face it. But as soon as I walked in, she looked up at me and quickly looked away, avoiding my gaze. I felt the distance between us grow even more in that single, fleeting moment. "You've been quiet lately?" I said, trying to break the silence, though the words felt hollow, like they didn't belong to me anymore. She looked back up, her eyes tired, heavy with something I couldn't read. "I've been thinking," she said, her voice soft but laced with something I couldn't place. I raised an eyebrow but didn't speak, waiting for her to continue. She seemed to gather herself for a moment, like she was deciding whether to say whatever was on her mind. "I didn't mean what I said," she finally whispered, her voice almost inaudible. "I didn't mean to hurt you." I couldn't bring myself to respond immediately. There was a strange kind of finality in her words, like she was apologizing because she felt she should, not because she truly understood the depth of what she had done. I wasn't sure if I could accept that apology, or if I even wanted to. "You can't just take that back, Emily," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "Words like that, they don't just disappear. I've been carrying them with me. I've been carrying everything for so long. I don't know if I can just let go of that. Let go of you." The tension between us felt unbearable, a thick, suffocating cloud hanging over the room. I could see the struggle in her face, the way her lips quivered as if she wanted to say something, but couldn't find the right words. The distance between us seemed like an ocean. No matter how hard she tried to swim toward me, I wasn't sure I could reach her anymore. "I know," she whispered, almost too softly. I didn't realize what I had until I was on the other side of it. And now, I'm not sure if it's too late. I wanted to say something, anything, but the words caught in my throat. The truth was, I didn't know where we stood. I didn't know if there was a way back to what we once had. But I couldn't just forget everything that had happened. I couldn't ignore the way she had dismissed me, the way she had taken me for granted without realizing it. "I don't know if we can go back to what we were," I finally said, my voice breaking slightly. "But I also don't know if we can keep living like this." She looked at me then, really looked at me, for the first time in days. Her eyes were filled with regret, but there was something else there too. Something softer, something that seemed like hope. I didn't know if that hope was for us or for herself, but it felt fragile. "I don't want to lose you," she said quietly. I don't know what I was thinking. I just felt trapped, like I was suffocating. But now I see that I made it worse. I made it all worse. I couldn't meet her gaze anymore. I couldn't let myself fall back into the trap of wanting to fix things, of believing that this was something we could patch together with a few words and a few apologies. I needed time. I needed space. And most of all, I needed to stop pretending like this wasn't affecting me. "I think we both need to figure out who we are now," I said, my voice steady but distant. "We need to figure out who we are without each other. I don't think I can be the person you need me to be anymore." She didn't argue. She didn't try to pull me back in. Instead, she sat there quiet, her hands clasped tightly in her lap as if she was bracing herself for the finality of it all. I didn't know what the future held. I didn't know if there was still a way forward for us. But I did know that I couldn't keep living in the limbo of what we used to be. We had both changed too much for that. And though it broke my heart to admit it, I had to let her go. I turned and walked toward the door, but before I could leave the room, I heard her speak again. "Michael," she said, her voice barely audible. I paused, but I didn't turn around. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." And with that, I left the house. The quiet emptiness that followed felt like freedom. It felt like the first breath I had taken in months. As the days stretched on, I began to rebuild. I focused on myself, on my own life, my own happiness. I started picking up the pieces of who I was before all of this, before the weight of a broken relationship had weighed me down. I wasn't sure where Emily's path would take her, but I knew that mine was finally mine again. The end was painful, yes, but it was also a beginning.